sanitation and other issues.
Yeah. But that's the problem, isn't it, guys?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Has that not always been an issue?
No.
Oh, no.
How does the manganese have anything to do with the age of the pumps or the pipes?
It doesn't have anything to do with the age of the, but it does have things to do, if we cannot, the high levels come through, then there's coatings that built inside, and stuff like that. But like I say, the age of the underlying piping structures under the plant, the older motors that did not get changed out in the 93, the raw water pump building, itself that sits out there, the pumps in it, and the piping under that.
Yes. But the manganese is coming from the lake.
Yes, sir.
Okay. This is really just the age of all of our, I mean, I have to deal with water pumps, stuff like that all the time. So
But the thing
I
is,
understand what you're saying.
early, Mr. Wheeler, correct me if I'm wrong, early indications on some form of treatment that we looked at could go as high as 450,000 to 800,000, and where we're looking more close to that 800,000. And I don't want to stand in front of you and say I need 800,000 for these improvements, and then turn around the following year and pumps, motors. I want a plan in place that you know as well as what's going on down there as I do.
Yes, sir. One of the other problems you have is being an older plant too. Every time you go in there and you touch something and you have to upgrade it, well, when you upgrade it, it's not really grandfathered in anymore, so you have to do it to the current TCEQ regulations. And so sometimes those additional costs can be even more to bring things up to current standards when you go in there and change something from just, fixing something. One thing that we were cognizant of was the clarifier that was recently installed. And when we're doing our evaluation, I mean, we'll look to try and see about, saving that so you're not losing that money in vain.
Yeah, that'd be good. I certainly don't want to figure out that we need to replace the clarifier already, so that's.
But I mean, this is like grabbing a corner of a piece of square Jell-O. You grab that one corner, you shake the whole thing. I think that's what we've got into here.
True.
We're shaking the whole tree now.
I can't argue with the plans, with wanting a plan, so, I mean, it's, well,
Well, do we agree we really don't want to do the Fort Worth deal?
I do.
I mean, I do, but.
Because they control it.
To what Steve said, Steve pointed out that back in '93, they didn't,
That
they went ahead without at least figuring out what that answer was, and I will take his word for it because I was in the 7th grade in 1994, but I think there's a point to that. I don't think any of us like the idea of that, but I think it is good to, if we're gonna send them to do a plan and to get the numbers back to us, I think that's valid to at least know what that number is, what that situation is.
How would you know about the Fort Worth, other than, I guess, the cost to hook up to them permanently? But the problem I have with that is, every time we turn around and talk about trash, I am told that the reason why River Oaks trash pickup is so much higher than everybody else's because we have to pay Fort Worth for our sewer. And how, if we ever went on Fort Worth permanently, how do we control what the price of our water is? So how can they tell us what it's going to cost when we don't know what they're going to do 5 years after we spend millions of dollars? That's my concern, of what we burden our citizens with.
One of the things the only thing that we have one of the things that we have control with is there'll be initial buying costs. In other words, there'll be a buying cost that you have to buy in. And then Marvin and I both sit on a committee. I'm actually vice chairman of the committee. It's a wholesale rate committee. And this year I'll be actually attending the subcommittee that will, how the rate is developed. Each year we go to meetings and they present their whole, with their professionals on how the rate is developed. It's just not something that they pull out of the hat. They have formulas and it depends on how much infrastructure they do. Like you said, the more infrastructure they do, the more the rate gets passed, not only through the wholesale committee, but also in the residential. And they break that down in front of us. and show us how they come up with that rate.
But the real answer to Darren's question is, the city of River Oaks is unique as compared to the other contract entities for wastewater, in that the original contract that River Oaks signed was different. And there are certain assumptions that were made in that related to the amount of water that is flowing to the city of Fort Worth based on our number of connections that is incorrect.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
And we do not have the ability to change it because we don't have enough votes on the contracted customers to change that. So the only remedy will be the day that we can, it makes financial sense to have meters everywhere our flow goes into Fort Worth, so that we can prove to them that we are not putting that much fluid into their system. This is my understanding from talking with Marvin.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Which is, I don't wanna say it's impossible, but it's gonna be very difficult, because we've got, 16 or 17. We don't just have one or two connections with Fort Worth, so I mean, like you said, it would be a point where it would be financially possible. I don't know that it's ever gonna be realistic to have 16, different meters going.
They'll never be able to do 100% of River Oaks. They told me 80% is the best they could ever do.
But yeah, no.
Getting the contract right from day one, I think, prevent something like that from occurring. We can do this.
That's fair.
Mr. Wheeler, could you answer the timeline if we were awarded the contract, the timeline on this project?
I'm sorry, you cut out there.
The timeline on the project, how long to develop the report?
I thought we had discussed having it back to you guys by May.
Yes, sir.
Question to you, Gordon,
Yes, sir.
is there any grants available? I know you've been getting grants, but is there any water department grants?
You have earned your keep.
You have earned your keep.
Yeah.
Now you can really earn it.
I don't know if I have some familiarity with the USDA, grants. I did those in another city, but I don't know if they pay for studies.
Well, I'm not talking about the study, I'm talking about past the study.
Oh, past the study? Yes, there's, grants available in different parts, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you actually, even though you're in a large metroplex area, you actually, qualify under the U.S. Department of Agriculture for a grant/loan there also.
Okay, well, why don't you research that while we're looking into this other deal?
Yeah, I'm well familiar with another city. They received a $2 million loan and another $990,000 grant with it as a package. Yeah.
Oh, boy. We need to,
Yeah, go get that.
bigger package, less loan.
So Marvin, these funds are budgeted, aren't they?
Yes, sir, they are budgeted.
Marvin?
Yes, sir, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
They are budgeted.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the contract with Town Plumber Associates to study the water treatment plant for approximately $24,800.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to, approve the, contract with Allen Plumber Incorporated for, to develop this plan. Are there any further discussions? All in favor, say aye.
Yes. Okay.
What's that, Dan?
Is this for all three options?
Motion was to include all three options.
I believe so, Steve.
Yes, okay. Okay.
Okay. Motion carries 5-0.
Mayor and council, thank you.
Thank you.
This is gonna be a big future thing for us.
Good, sir.
Can I make a comment?
Absolutely.
Is that something else?
Yes.
We ask everybody at home to mute their computers, and if you'll use the space bar when you're ready to talk, it will prevent the, terrible amount of noise that's heard on this end.
Everybody is muted.
Thank you. You can use the space bar like a walkie-talkie and makes it a little easier to keep from accidentally leaving it on.